There is a paradox men will never confess, a quiet truth buried in the shadows of their longing. His lips may never shape the words, but his soul reveals them in every restless glance, in every tightening silence. He does not crave you when you give yourself endlessly. His desire does not ignite when you stand waiting for his recognition. No, his hunger begins when you withdraw, when your presence, once so easily taken, folds back into mystery. This is the secret rhythm Carl Jung would recognize, the eternal dance of anima and animus, the polarity of absence and pursuit, the fire that sparks only in the space where longing is forced to breathe. When you withdraw, you awaken his unconscious. You stir the parts of him he cannot name, the archetypes that run deeper than his willpower, deeper than his pride. He is confronted not with your body alone, but with the ghost of you, the imprint of your energy retreating into silence. And it is in that silence that his desire blooms. Jung understood that the human psyche is bound by projection. A man does not fall in love with you directly. He falls in love with the reflection of his own anima cast upon you. When you are near, when you offer yourself without pause, he does not yet feel the full weight of that projection. But when you step back, when your energy no longer floods him, the mirror he has placed upon you begins to shimmer with absence. He feels the void and he cannot bear it. It is in your withdrawal that he first sees you clearly. The mystery of you does not exist in the noise of constant giving, but in the quiet of holding back. Your distance becomes a dark forest in which his unconscious stirs, his instinct sharpened, his anima whispers. And here's a paradox. Men often believe they desire what is constantly available, yet their deeper psyche craves the unattainable. When you withdraw, you are no longer a possession, but an enigma, and an enigma is irresistible. In Jungian language, this is a shadow play. Your absence forces him to confront the shadow of his own dependency, his own fear of abandonment. He may tell himself he is strong, self-contained, untouched by need. But when your energy vanishes, when you no longer orbit his world, that illusion cracks. He feels the hunger he hides, the craving he cannot control. The anima, Jung wrote, is the soul image within the man, the feminine counterpart that draws him toward wholeness. He projects it outward onto the woman, who captivates him. And when you withdraw, you awaken his anima with intensity. Suddenly, he is no longer looking at you as the everyday woman beside him. He is staring into the abyss of his soul, aching to reclaim a reflection that is slipping away. This is why his desire begins in your absence. Not because you are cruel, not because you manipulate, but because the unconscious awakens only through tension. Without space, there is no gravity. Without withdrawal, there is no pursuit. And so you wonder, don't you? What happens when you stop giving? When you step back into your own silence? You fear he may forget you. You fear he may not follow. But in truth, this is when the hidden hunger begins. This is when his desire sharpens into something primal, something he cannot explain. Withdraw, not with anger, not with games, but with dignity. Withdraw into the sanctuary of your own worth. And watch how he bends beneath the weight of absence. He will never tell you this. He may not even know it himself. But his desire does not belong to the moments you chase. It belongs to the mystery you create when you step away. Desire is not born in abundance. It is born in scarcity. A man does not long for what is always in his reach. He longs for what recedes, what slips from his grasp, what does not bend easily to his will. Carl Jung knew this truth when he spoke of projection. The mysterious act where the human psyche casts its shadow, its anima, its unclaimed soul, onto another. When you remain in his constant presence, he forgets that you are separate, forgets that you are not his possession. His unconscious blurs you with his own needs. But when you withdraw, when you allow the silence between you to widen like a canyon, he feels the wound of separation. Suddenly, he sees you again, not as an extension of his comfort, but as an autonomous force, a mystery that escapes his control. That is when his desire awakens. He will never tell you this. He cannot. To admit that his longing depends on your distance would unravel the fragile mask of control he wears. Yet within the quiet spaces, when you no longer pour your attention into him, his anima stirs. The feminine image buried deep in his unconscious begins to surface, calling out, attaching itself to you. And in that moment, he is no longer the master. He is the seeker. The paradox of withdrawal is that it is not absence, but presence sharpened. It is the echo of your footsteps down the corridor of his psyche. It is the space where projection loses its playground, and he can no longer distract himself with the illusion of control. Carl Jung once whispered through his writings, "We do not fall in love with others as they are. We fall in love with the image, the soul mirror they unknowingly carry for us. And when you are constantly present, that mirror becomes clouded, smudged, familiar. He thinks he knows it. He thinks he knows you. But when you withdraw, when your light recedes into shadow, the mirror becomes veiled. He no longer sees only you. He sees himself in the absence, the part of him that aches, the part that remembers, the part that fears losing the very reflection that made him feel alive. You see, his desire does not thrive in certainty. Certainty is a cage. Certainty is routine. Certainty is the death of wonder. But withdrawal breathes life into the myth of you. It stirs his anima, the eternal feminine in his unconscious, that archetypal force he has chased since boyhood dreams. You do not give him desire. You awaken it by stepping away, by refusing to be consumed. And in this distance, something ancient unfolds. His longing grows not because you play a game, but because you have become untouchable. The Stoics call this the magnetism of restraint, the power of holding your ground in silence. Desire, after all, is born not in the feast, but in the famine, not in what is touched, but in what is withheld. He may never confess this. His lips will never say, "My heart raced more when you pulled back," but his body knows, his mind knows, his restless searching knows. When you withdraw, you fracture his illusion of possession, and that fracture becomes the seed of obsession. The wound opens, and through that wound he discovers himself, his fears, his shadows, his hunger. And yet, paradoxically, it is you he associates with the opening. You are the flame in the dark cave of his psyche, even when you are not there. When she withdraws, the silence is not absence, but presence intensified. He feels it like a sudden vacuum where her laughter once rang, where her eyes once lingered too long. The absence of her gaze is sharper than the presence of her words. It cuts through his armor more deeply than confrontation ever could. For men, desire often awakens not in the embrace of possession, but in the ache of what slips away. This is a paradox. When she leans forward, his ego breathes easy. When she leans back, his soul stirs awake. Jung spoke of the anima as a haunting presence inside the male psyche, the eternal feminine, the mirror of his unconscious longing. He searches for her not in the world, but in himself, yet projects her onto the woman who passes through his life like a flicker of divinity. When she withdraws, she activates this archetype within him, and suddenly the ordinary woman becomes an image of the unattainable. She embodies mystery, distance, and depth. The anima does not respond to grasping hands. She responds to reverence, to yearning. Thus his desire does not ignite when he owns, but when he chases shadows he cannot hold. Withdrawal, then, is not cruelty. It is initiation. It is the ancient ritual of reminding him that what he craves cannot be conquered like territory or consumed like food. It must be met with humility, with a willingness to enter the unknown. This is why a man will often desire most fiercely the woman who does not cling, who does not make herself small for his comfort. Her distance speaks the language of his unconscious, the language that tells him she is not his possession, but a doorway to his own unfinished soul. And here lies a secret most men will never confess. It is not your closeness that makes him tremble. It is your silence. It is not your pursuit that makes him restless. It is your refusal to orbit him. Your withdrawal confronts him with the unbearable truth, that his worth is not absolute, that his power is fragile, that his longing is ancient and untamed. He will never tell you this, because to admit it is to admit his dependence on what he cannot control. So when you pull back, do not imagine it as loss. See it as a sacred mirror held to his psyche. The archetypal feminine has never belonged to the grasping hands of man. She has always dwelled in the mystery of absence, in the quiet refusal to be contained. You are not denying him. You are awakening him. You are not punishing him. You are summoning him into the deeper corridors of himself. The feminine withdrawal is not silence. It is symphony. It is the pause that makes the music possible, the gap between notes that gives rhythm its meaning. A man does not long for you in the noise of constant presence. He longs for you in the spaces you leave behind. When she withdraws, she is not abandoning him. She is allowing him to confront the truth of his own hunger. Because hunger cannot be felt in fullness. It is only awakened in absence. Carl Jung once said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And so, when you retreat, you drag him into his own shadow. The part of him that clung to certainty, to comfort, begins to unravel. He senses the loss, but he cannot name it. He feels the echo of something essential, something primal, slipping beyond his reach. Desire is born in that unraveling. You see, Men are not afraid of what they can hold. They are afraid of what they cannot possess. And the feminine who withdraws not out of bitterness, but out of quiet sovereignty, becomes the embodiment of the unpossessable. She becomes like the moon, distant, glowing, untouchable, and he becomes a tide, pulled toward her whether he wills it or not. Withdrawal is not punishment. It is initiation. It forces him to wrestle with the anima within, the eternal feminine that dwells inside his psyche. This inner anima, neglected and silenced, stirs in your absence. She whispers to him of longing, of beauty, of tenderness that he has exiled from himself. And so he projects that voice onto you. You become the mirror of his forgotten depths. But here's the paradox. While he thinks he is chasing you, he is really chasing the part of himself that you awakened. He desires not only your body, not only your warmth, but the piece of his soul that he glimpsed through you. And this is why the more you retreat into your inner sanctum, the more his desire burns. Because the treasure is no longer external. It is archetypal, it is eternal, and it has been set aflame. Yet this power is dangerous, because a woman who withdraws without knowing her worth is simply escaping. But a woman who withdraws from fullness, from self-possession, from the radiance of her being, is not running. She is leading. And men will follow her into that labyrinth, desperate to find the center where she dwells. Do you see now? Desire is not something you beg for. It is not something you demand. It is a natural consequence of your willingness to step back into your own shadow, to stand whole without needing to be seen. When you withdraw, you are not leaving him. You are inviting him to step closer to himself. And in that invitation, the chase begins, not toward conquest, but toward revelation. The more she steps back, the more he feels a tremor of something ancient stir within him. It is not just desire for her body, nor even the longing for her presence. It is a confrontation with the emptiness he had long avoided. For in her silence, in her subtle absence, he is made aware of the hollowness inside himself, the shadow he never dared to face. He remembers the times he reached for her, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being unseen, unloved, forgotten. Her withdrawal pierces that illusion, leaving him naked before the truth. He had not been chasing her, but rather running from himself. She, unknowingly, becomes a mirror that reflects the void. And in that mirror, he glimpses both his ruin and his possibility. A man's ego trembles when the feminine no longer bends to his grasp. It is then he realizes how much he relied on her softness to cushion his unhealed wounds, how much he needed her presence to silence the inner chaos he would not confront. The stoic within him whispers that suffering, once embraced, becomes a teacher. Yet he resists, flinches, denies. Still, her absence teaches in ways no words could. Her silence burns like fire, purifying him through its quiet ferocity. She, too, feels the tension, but hers is of another kind. Within her heart, an ancient knowing awakens, that love is not built by surrendering her soul, but by standing in her essence. The anima he projected upon her, the goddess he saw in her eyes, must be reclaimed by him if he is ever to grow. She cannot carry that weight. She cannot mother the man who refuses to meet his own reflection. And so, every time she withholds, she is not merely creating distance. She is creating initiation. She is calling him into the labyrinth of his own psyche, daring him to descend, to wrestle with the beast he has hidden in the dark. It is in this descent that his desire sharpens, no longer a fleeting hunger of the flesh, but an ache that binds itself to something eternal. Her silence, her withdrawal, becomes alchemy. She does not explain, does not justify, does not soothe. She simply remains, a mystery, a flame untouchable. In that mystery, he begins to feel the raw edges of longing not just for her, but for the man he is yet to become. And this is why his desire deepens when she withdraws, because she leads him, without words, into the chambers of his own soul. The man who once sought to conquer with words now learns that silence has a power greater than speech. His rehearsed lines dissolve in the presence of mystery, because what he faces is not a predictable pattern, but the vast ocean of feminine withdrawal. To him, this absence feels like abandonment, but beneath it, something ancient stirs, a recognition that desire is not born from certainty, but from the tension of what cannot be possessed. You see, the ego clings to what it can control. It feeds on validation, on constant reassurance, on knowing it will not be forgotten. But when a woman steps back, not in bitterness, not in manipulation, but in quiet dignity, she becomes a mirror in which he must face his own reflection. He sees the hollowness of his bravado, the fragility of his pursuit. Jung knew that the anima appears not as a gift freely given, but as a presence that withdraws into shadow until a man learns to see. In this moment, he remembers the first wound he ever felt, the wound of separation. The infant torn from the mother's breast, the boy who sought approval and did not find it, the man who craves affirmation yet despises his own dependence on it. Your withdrawal does not create this fracture. It merely awakens what has always been there. And in that awakening, his desire begins to burn. It is not lust alone. It is hunger for wholeness. The anima has slipped beyond reach, and now he must wrestle with his shadow. He must ask himself why he fears being left, why silence terrifies him, why your absence is louder than any of your words ever were. And as he struggles, the mystery of you deepens. You no longer exist in his grasp. You exist in his imagination. That is where obsession takes root. But here lies the paradox. The more he desires, the less he can confess. He cannot tell you that your absence is the very thing that draws him in. He cannot reveal that it is your refusal to orbit his ego that forces him into orbit around yours. To admit it would shatter his carefully constructed armor. And so he remains quiet, performing indifference, even as his inner world floods with longing. You, meanwhile, stand not as a manipulator, but as an archetype. The queen who does not chase, the muse who does not explain. Your silence is not cruelty, but sovereignty. And sovereignty, when embodied, stirs every man's unconscious with both fear and reverence. He cannot name it, but he feels it. The more you step back into yourself, the more the echo of your presence resounds within him. His desire begins not when you give, but when you withdraw, not when you reveal, but when you conceal. For an economy of eros, it is mystery, not certainty, that creates a gravitational pull. Something magical happens when a woman embraces her true feminine power. It doesn't confront his ego, it dissolves it. A man's ego thrives in environments of resistance, competition, and control. But when feminine energy enters, it offers something radically different. Softness. Not weakness. Not submission. But softness that disarms his defenses in ways force never could. Think about it. When a man argues, debates, or tries to prove himself, his ego expands. But when you respond with grace, calm, and poise, you're not feeding his fire. You're showing him a different rhythm, a frequency he can't overpower because it doesn't fight. It flows. This softness is magnetic. It makes him curious. It makes him lower his armor, often without even realizing it. He begins to notice that he feels more at peace around you, more drawn in. His ego doesn't collapse. It simply stops being the shield between you. And here's the truth. A man may respect strength, but he craves the kind of softness that allows him to let go of his battles. When he experiences this, he doesn't just see you as a woman. He feels you as a force of nature. This is how feminine energy bends his ego. Not through domination, but through surrender to your own essence. At this stage, the three silent weapons, mystery, emotional sovereignty, and grace, begin working together like threads weaving an unbreakable fabric of attraction. Men often believe they're the ones in control of relationships. But the truth is, a woman who understands the depth of her feminine energy bends reality itself. Her mystery keeps him curious. Her sovereignty keeps him respecting. Her grace keeps him desiring. When these three are present, his ego cannot dominate her. Instead, he finds himself softening in her presence. He begins to lean in, chase, protect, and cherish, because the very essence of his masculine energy responds instinctively to hers. Carl Jung once noted that the feminine represents the unconscious force that transforms the masculine. Without her, he is incomplete. And when a woman embodies her quiet power, she becomes a mirror that challenges his ego, without a single word of confrontation. This is why truly powerful women don't scream for attention. They don't need to. Their energy bends a man's ego without breaking it, leading him to admire, love, and deeply respect her. The last and perhaps most silent but devastating weapon of feminine energy is self-sufficiency. A woman who is not desperate for validation, approval, or constant reassurance becomes a rare force in a man's world. Her energy communicates, I am whole with or without you. This does not mean she rejects love, nor does it mean she isolates herself. Instead, it means she embraces relationships as an addition to her fulfilled life, not the center of it. Men feel this power instantly. It unsettles the ego because the ego thrives on control, on being needed, on being the center of someone's existence. But when a woman radiates independence, the man realizes he cannot own her. He can only choose to stand beside her. This is where ego bends to respect. Because true feminine energy does not compete, it does not beg, and it does not chase. It simply shines so brightly in its wholeness that a man feels drawn, humbled, and magnetized. The paradox? By needing no one, she becomes the one every man desires. Ladies, if this message resonated with you, don't just listen, act. Remember, knowledge without action changes nothing. The feminine energy you hold is not a weapon to destroy men, but power to bend the ego of those who underestimate you, to shape the reality around you, and to awaken respect without ever demanding it. If you found value in this video, hit that like button to let me know you want more. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the secrets of feminine energy, Jungian psychology, and the art of attraction. And now, I want to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right, which of these silent weapons of feminine energy do you feel most drawn to? Mystery, detachment, or graceful power? Drop your answer in the comments below, and let's spark a conversation. Finally, share this video with another woman who needs to be reminded of her power, because when women rise together, the world shifts. Stay radiant, stay mysterious, and remember, the ego bends, but the feminine endures.